Well, hey guys, this is Dr. Drake 63 here today. Thanks for joining me. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics when it comes to a self-defense firearm, and that's the concept of carrying a round in the chamber as opposed to not. How many times have we looked at television shows or old movies where you'd see a supposedly trained individual of some type, a police officer, FBI agent, somebody in the CIA, James Bond, you name it, and coming into a situation where they needed to use their firearm, the first thing they did was this. I grew up watching shows, and that's pretty much what they always did with a semi-auto loader, which always perplexed me because I thought, okay, so you weren't ready to fire the firearm until just then. So if you were in a situation where you didn't want to be seen or heard, did you just give yourself away? I'm going to talk about that concept a little bit today and what I believe is a cardinal rule to being prepared for self-defense, and that's always, without an exception, having a round chambered in your firearm. We're going to talk about that. Now, if you're using a revolver, and the exception might be like an old 6-shooter where you only want to put 5 in because you don't want the firing pin resting on a round or something like that. But any modern revolver, you're always going to have rounds in the chamber. So you're basically always ready to go, okay? Without a question, this firearm is in a go condition, especially this being a single action, double action, where you either can cock back on the hammer and fire or just do a nice long pull. So any revolver that you have loaded is considered a round chambered. However, with semi-auto loaders, it's a different story. A lot of guys carry something like this Glock 19, which has a magazine, okay, and also a round in the chamber. Now, in the case of this Glock, there's a little indentation here on the extractor claw where I can easily reach down and feel, because it's protruding a little bit, that there's a round in the chamber. Now, I don't really have to worry about that too much because I know with all my firearms, when I'm carrying them, what condition they're in. They're in a condition to fire when I pull the trigger. It's that simple, guys. It's that simple. It's also the reason that I don't ever engage a safety or own a pistol that has a safety on it. I don't want anything to do with anything that could keep me from firing my weapon as needed. So it all comes down to lots of practice, lots of finger discipline. I never pull this out of the holster with this finger inside the trigger well. I never do it. It's a habit. It's a matter of course. I always come out like this. When I'm ready to fire, that's when it's going to go on the trigger, okay? Speaking of practice, and this is why this is so important, okay? When you're in a self-defense situation, and I don't want to make any claims to have been a person who has been involved with a citizen-involved shooting. I've never been shot at, and I've never shot anybody. So, you know, there's a caveat right there. I'm going off of people that I've spoken to that have been involved in firearm shooting situations, as well as doing a lot of research on the subject. And what becomes very clear is that when your life is in danger, when you are afraid, what happens is everything becomes right out in front of you. You lose a lot of awareness. You're focused right on what's in front of you. You have your adrenaline is running through your body, seizing your muscles up, making things tense, making things tight, and making it real hard to do things that involve thinking about them prior. The reason for that is instinct. We're meant to have a fight or flight reflex at that point, both of which involved elevated blood pressure, both of which involved muscles having adrenaline ready to go. You're pumped up, for lack of a better word. You have more strength than you're used to having. And these are all things that can work against the proper usage of a firearm, okay? It's for that reason that I strongly recommend always have a round chambered in your firearm that you are using for self-defense. That means if it's on your nightstand at home, if it's in a biometric safe next to your bed on your nightstand, if it's in your glove box in your car, if it's on your body, if it's a self-defense firearm, it should always have a round in the chamber. Now, if you're somebody that has young kids at home, don't have that firearm where they can access it, but have a round in the chamber. Let me give you a scenario where this would be really important. You're in your house, you hear some noise. You don't know who it is or what they've come for. Now, you could be the person that says, hey, I've got a gun, I'm going to go check this out, only to find yourself face down with 5 people also carrying a gun and end up dead instantly, okay? So confronting something just because you have a gun isn't always the brightest idea. There's going to be a lot of times where the best thing you can do with a firearm or not is simply retreat to a safe spot and only use that firearm if that safe spot is encroached upon. Okay, so, and that may be the best thing to protect your family, by the way, because you don't know how many people are in your house. You don't know what their intent is. So the whole thought that we're going to be John Wayne and Humphrey Bogart and go charging in someplace just because we have a gun and that's going to protect us, that isn't necessarily so, guys. So in a situation like that, do you want to have to rack your slide to give yourself away? You see it all the time with shotguns too. You know, the old police movies, guy or police shows, T.J. Hooker, whatever. They get out with their shotgun. The first thing they do is rack the slide. They weren't ready to fire that thing already. You'd think cops of all people would know the need to be ready to pull the trigger and get their business done. But hey, who am I to argue against the wisdom of Hollywood when producing shows that involve firearms, right? But anyway, you don't want to give away your position if you don't have to. I don't know anybody that can rack a slide quietly. In fact, the only time I see a firearm like this fail typically is when a newbie at the range is trying to help the slide along. That's usually when you end up having feeding issues. So you don't want to have to rack the slide. You don't want to have to be in a position where you're loading bullets, whether it's loading them into a wheel gun, loading them into your magazine, whatever. You need to be ready to go. That's why a self-defense firearm is for self-defense. I'm not saying if you've got a 44 hunting Magnum that you need to put that in the safe with bullets in it, or that all your firearms need to have a round in the chamber at all times. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I am suggesting, though, is if you plan to use something for self-defense, if it's your go-to firearm or one of your go-to firearms, it needs to be loaded. And by loaded, that means ammunition in the wheel or ammunition in the magazine and a round chamber. It's no brainer to me, guys. It makes absolutely no sense to think that you're going to be able to properly function in a situation you've never been in when you're probably more scared than you've ever been in your life. You want as few variables to have to work through as possible. So that's why I always want to be able to pick the gun up and be prepared to use it. Just a real quick word to end up to on practice. I go to the range every week. I shoot a minimum of 50 rounds a week, and typically it's more like 150 or 200. So over the course of like last year, for example, I think I shot between 8,000 and 10,000 handgun rounds, okay? Does that mean I'm the best shot there is? No, it doesn't. But you know what it does mean? It means I have muscle memory. Should there be a situation where my or my family's lives are endangered to the point where I need to draw this weapon, I'm drawing it, I'm going to get it on target, and I'm going to properly engage the target with this firearm a lot better than somebody who doesn't practice. Practice drawing at home. Practice dry firing at home. I know very few firearms that are going to be harmed by dry firing them, or get some snap caps if you're worried about it. If you're going to carry in a way that's going to save your life. Just having a gun on you isn't going to save your life. In fact, there's a real good chance if you don't know what you're doing that it could actually cause you more harm than good. Anyway, that's my soapbox. Carry chambered. Always carry chambered. You'll never regret carrying chambered. You're not going to give away your position. You're going to be ready to engage a target. Heaven help us if we ever have to use a firearm in self-defense. But if I do, I want to be good at it. How about you? This is DR Drake 63 saying thanks for watching. Have a great day. Carry on, guys.